I listen very deeply. When I hear a voice, I hear who a human being is.
Arthur is the founder and chairman of the Vocal Awareness Institute.
Huge stars like Angelina Jolie, Arnold Schwarzenegger. There's so many anecdotes that
Arthur's mission is to change the world through voice.
I don't teach awareness. That doesn't mean anything to me. What I am teaching is conscious awareness. You create your vision statement. Mine is to change the world through voice.
Arthur, you are somebody who has coached industry leaders, celebrities including Angelina Jolie, Pierce Brosnan, Arnold Schwarzenegger, and Tony Robbins.
My overarching goal statement is to help all those I work with to achieve their own enlightenment and enjoy their own empowerment.
What do you think? What is the importance of claiming your stature and using your voice effectively?
People have often called me a channeler. My goal is never to make someone into someone they're not, but to bring out what is possible. On my website, there's a brilliant video of an elite basketball player in America whose name is Dwayne Wade. But his retirement speech was only about 4 to 5 months after we'd met. If one were to look at Dwayne in a basketball interview 6 months earlier, they would have seen a basketball player sounding like a basketball player. But here you see Dwayne embodying leadership. Dwayne embodying a true champion.
What would you ask or say to someone who might not have been blessed with the capability to speak and has a voice?
If I were to do this work with them and relax certain body tensions, like in the neck and shoulders, perhaps slow down their visual communication. There was a brilliant movie. The protagonist, Marlee Matlin, won an Academy Award years ago as a deaf actress. I challenge anybody to watch this movie and not cry. And I had a deaf student in class. I'd always believed I could teach a deaf person to sing, though.
Arthur, thank you so much. Such a pleasure having you here on this podcast. Shukran.
Thank you for having me.
Arthur, you are an expert when it comes to vocal awareness. And I'm very conscious because the podcasting is all about using your vocal cords. And when I know that a master is sitting in front of me, I'm a bit nervous, a bit conscious.
And one of the things that I'm always teaching Gaurav is we only want our audience to know what we want them to know. If that is an audience of one, or this podcast, board meeting, a PowerPoint presentation, a date. We only want someone to know what we want them to know. We don't want to reveal what you just revealed. I appreciate your respect, but I also saw your trepidation, a little anxiety.
Yes.
And so we're going to resolve all of that.
Arthur, I was just listening to one of your TED Talks. And you mentioned that when you own your voice, you own your power. I found that one statement very powerful. Tell me about that.
I have 7 rituals in vocal awareness, Gaurav. The 6th one is pay attention, deeper listening. I begin answering your question this way because I don't teach consciousness. I don't teach awareness. That doesn't mean anything to me. What I am teaching is conscious awareness.
Conscious awareness.
What I refer to as a 360, intra and interpersonally, all at the same time. People have often called me a channeler. And often when one channels, they're not present. They're just channeling. But I am always present. Again, intra and inter. So when you speak about when you own your voice, I always spell it in that context with a capital V. When I do that, the capital V refers to my inner voice. The lowercase v, my speaking voice. So in the sixth ritual, it's the opportunity to live in concert within our, what I call our deeper self, in a conversation between source and self, God, however we want to identify. One can actually be an agnostic in this work and still acknowledge something outside our corporeal form. So in the sixth ritual, I'm always listening. I'm always feeling this integration of mind, body, spirit, striving to live in the integrity of this moment, whatever that moment is, or this moment. Am I addressing your question in any constructive way?
So when you said capital V is the inner voice, smaller v is the speaking voice.
When we make eye contact, Gaurav, it changes the sound of our voice. But it also shifts a behavior from unconscious to consciously aware. We all gather thoughts wherever we want to gather them. That's part of how we do things. But in vocal awareness, I want us to choose to do that. And if I do look away, as I often do, I'm not speaking with you again until I'm making eye contact. Because one of the aspects of vocal awareness, one of the mantras, as if you will, is we are not our behaviors.
We are not our behaviors.
That's a behavior, but that's not who we are. So I want us to help shift our behavior.
Leveraging voice.
Let's begin to add a couple of more elements, if I may.
Yeah.
You're going to have to adjust your mic perhaps for this one, because I love the intensity, I love the integrity of what we're already doing. But I'd love you to first sit up straight, Gaurav, sit at attention. And notice how you hold your breath. That's what we all do when we present ourselves. What do you think of me? We hold our breath. Now, I would never want you to do that, Gaurav, but that's what we do unconsciously. Rather, I want you to take this golden thread from 3 inches below your navel, Gaurav, and we're going to slowly and gracefully pull this golden thread, enabling you to embody a man of stature, feeling remarkable about yourself. And what has the body already done, Gaurav? Did you notice you inhaled?
I inhaled, yeah.
You noticed that, correct?
Yes.
When you sat at attention, you held your breath. When you claim yourself as a man of stature, the body's first impulse is to acknowledge that with a breath. So let's continue. And right up through the middle of the crown chakra.
Yeah.
And fully extend your arm. Fully extend. Neck, shoulders loose. It's not a mechanical thing we're doing. It's a spiritual thing we're doing. We're only pulling from here, from the lateral obliques, not from the neck and shoulders. Your head is perpendicular. And feel source in this moment. The first of our 7 rituals is to say thank you. Arm down. And now keep feeling that thread internally continuing to pull you. Can you feel how your core muscles are more engaged? Feel how your chest is more open. And say, I am an extraordinary man. In 3, 2, begin.
I'm an extraordinary man.
I didn't say that. I didn't use the contraction. I said, I am an extraordinary man. But before you do it the next time, I want you to take a nice deep breath and say it at the peak of that breath.
I am an extraordinary man.
Now, we don't ever want to breathe like that again. Instead, I want you to breathe in the 3rd ritual's way to allow a slow, silent, conscious, loving breath. I will guide it. It will take 5 seconds. And at the apex of that inhale, say that statement again. In 3, deeper, loving, deeper. It's too fast. Don't take, just allow loving. You ready? Feeling source. Slowly, eyes on me. Begin. Deeper, deeper, deeper. And the statement, I am an extraordinary man.
I am an extraordinary man.
Do you begin to feel a little difference?
Little different. I can see my chest is swollen. I can see I'm sitting. I can see I'm sitting straight and having a conversation with you.
And do you feel your internal and external space are subtly quieter?
It is. It is. I have more concentration. I'm
Tell me that
less.
God of. Tell me that same sentence and underline the last word and see a full stop at the end.
I have more concentration.
Yes. For when we see the full stop, we sound more authoritative, more definitive, less equivocal.
So true. So true. Arthur, whatever little we went through, I could gather how you play with voice, how we can play with words, and how it can help us claim our power. In fact, I loved it when you used the term claim your stature. I do a lot of work with leaders. In fact, if you look at this podcast, the primary viewership of this podcast is CXOs or CXOs minus one, primarily. What do you think? What is the importance of claiming your stature and using your voice effectively can help?
Well, currently, without the sounding presumptuous or arrogant, virtually everyone that you interview at that level are really solid business leaders. But if they were to begin to embody this work, they would learn how to become a leader in business, which is another level of embodiment. It's not just being a business leader, but becoming a leader in business. In my last book, Vocal Leadership, 7 Minutes a Day to Communication Mastery, I have an acrostic on leadership. An acrostic is where each letter, it's always written vertically, and each letter of the word represents a meaning of that word. So in my acrostic, the L stands for leading by example. The E in part stands for embodiment, empowerment, and ennobling, one of my favorite words. When we hold the size of whom we're capable of being, we ennoble others through our example, enabling them to be all of what they're capable of being. So it raises all boats, and we create a company, an organization with such respectful symmetry and support, it changes the game. Like Kaizen did generations ago, the Japanese concept in business leadership, which is really just brilliant, which I'm sure you're familiar with. But that space I just took right there, I teach that space has value.
It has.
How do we take that time that we want to convey the message on our terms? You referenced a TED talk that I did, a TEDx talk. I've written 2 or 3 talks out in my entire life. It's not because I'm lazy. I certainly give a great number of talks. But it's because I challenge myself to be like the greatest jazz musicians. I want to be in my work and riff, but riffing based on craft. And it's my challenge to myself to be that present. This TEDx talk that I gave, I wrote that out. And even the day of the event, I practiced it 25 to 30 times.
Wow.
That's me. That's not a layperson. And got to the venue with my bride a couple of hours ahead of everyone else, put my recorder on, and kept practicing. Because that's mastery. I'm a classical singer. I have a master's in voice. This was not a presentation. This was a performance. It was a recital. And a recital, it's not about perfect. It's about impeccable. But in business, we just put a PowerPoint slides. Maybe we've got some bullets, but we just riff. How ordinary is that? What's compelling about that? On my website, there's a brilliant video of a elite basketball player in America whose name is Dwayne Wade. Dwayne was just inducted last summer into the Naismith Pro Basketball Hall of Fame. His retirement speech and his Hall of Fame speech are on my website, but his retirement speech was only about 4 to 5 months after we'd met. My goal is never to make someone into someone they're not, but to bring out what is possible. If one were to look at Dwayne in a basketball interview 6 months earlier, they would have seen a basketball player sounding like a basketball player. But here you see Dwayne embodying leadership. Dwayne embodying a true champion. Because the axiom here is a champion does it differently. Here we are in a podcast. You have other things you could be doing with your life, but you chose to create this podcast because you are a champion. And it matters to me to support that. One of the trademarked aspects of vocal awareness is called visceral language. In the TEDx talk, you see me demonstrate it for a moment. It's a concept that teaches us how to make voice visual. I literally, not figuratively, see every single word I say on the virtual computer screen in my mind's eye. And I interpret them as I choose because they're all visual. But I've turned this into an art form. So on the teleprompter, all of Dwayne's speech was annotated in visceral language. However, we never got a dress rehearsal. We'd warmed up in the green room just before on the mirror, but we didn't get a dress rehearsal. We had no time. Yes, we'd been practicing it for a couple of 3 weeks, but when he walked out, that was the first time he saw it moving on the prompter. And it was the first time he ever read teleprompter. First time he had ever read prepared remarks. And there were over 18,000 people in this arena and millions online because he's quite a popular fellow. And all you will see is Dwayne being outrageous, just being extraordinary and exemplary.
Yeah. And I'm not surprised because you mentioned just a while back that when you embrace your being, you allow others being as well to grow that they are capable of being.
Nice observation, yes.
And I'm not surprised because if somebody goes to your website and if somebody starts to research on the kind of work that you have done, Arthur, you are somebody who has coached industry leaders, celebrities, including Angelina Jolie, Pierce Brosnan, Arnold Schwarzenegger, and Tony Robbins. And anyone less than who has been able to embrace the being that one is capable of, one would not be able to embrace the beings of the likes of Anthony Robbins, Arnold Schwarzenegger. What else would we expect from you? Arthur, I'm very intrigued. What would you ask or say to someone who's mute, who might not have been blessed with the capability to speak and has a voice? Would you still say that? That if you can claim your voice, you'll be able to claim your power?
Does that mean they're incapable of speaking at all or hearing?
At all. Speaking at all.
Do they sign?
Yes. Yes.
There was a brilliant movie that won an Academy Award a few years ago. I don't recall if it won Best Picture, it may have, but it won Best Actor. And the protagonists in this movie were actually deaf. Marlee Matlin was one of them, and she won an Academy Award years ago as a deaf actress. I challenge anybody to watch this movie and not cry. To watch the acceptance speech of this actor signing his acceptance speech that was being translated simultaneously with spoken language without being deeply moved. So I would say the same thing. But even with someone who is clearly has mastered what we know in this country as ASL, American Sign Language, if I were to do this work with them and relax certain body tensions, like in the neck and shoulders, perhaps slow down their visual communication, to phrase maybe differently. I'm only guessing at the moment, based on something else I will share with you in a moment. It would enhance what they do. I've taught hundreds of elite athletes, from Olympic gold medalists to Hall of Fame athletes. My 30th National Football League client is being inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame this summer in Canton. So he will be my 30th student to be in the Hall of Fame. Years ago, I was teaching somebody who was a moto supercross champion in a sport I never even knew existed, motorcycle dragsters. I parachute and everything. And we shaved a couple of hundredths of a second off his world record time by releasing shoulder tension, which reduced drag. I used to be a professor at the University of Southern California, and I had a deaf student in class. I'd always believed I could teach a deaf person to sing, though I'd never tried. So we began the first semester with her one hand on my larynx to feel vibration, because she had two hearing aids, couldn't hear a tape, couldn't hear anything.
Yeah.
And the other hand on the top of a beat up old upright piano. And I'm pounding the keys really heavy so she could feel vibration and vocalizing with her. Ya, ya, ya. Her first semester final was like this. Ya, 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 do, a dare. Mechanically like that. Her second semester final was 20 feet out on the Bing Auditorium stage, the theater on campus. Ya, 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 do, a dear, raindrops on roses. She missed the first semester of her junior year, came back for the second, and there was a very popular country song in America at the time called Blue Bayou. She sang it at a performance level and never would have known this child couldn't hear a lick. I listen very deeply. When I hear a voice, I hear who a human being is. So I just tune into it and I'm told where I need to go. It would be no difference with somebody who doesn't speak.
You have left me pondering. Probably Arthur with some other name would have taught Helen Keller. because one of the dreams that I saw for myself, Arthur, is how can I interact with someone who cannot see and speak in a way that somebody who cannot see can visualize what I'm seeing. And I know that I found a teacher for myself. I would like to thank you for being so generous in sharing what you just shared. Just the last question I have. On several occasions, while listening to you, you have spoken about authentic voice. What can I do that could help me find my authentic voice?
You create first what I call your persona statement. The root of the word persona is an ancient Etruscan word, Greek dialect. The root of the word is phersu, P-H-E-R-S-U. Persona means through the sound. One's identity is largely conveyed through the sound of a voice. So you answer two questions. One, how do I believe I'm presently perceived? The second question you answer is, how would I ideally like to be known? And each of those answers is also accompanied by a drawing. One that reflects this is how I'm perceived. The second, the idealized, this is how I want to be known. Then you create your vision statement. Mine is to change the world through voice. What is the contribution you want to make? Then you establish goal statements with timelines. My overarching goal statement is to help all those I work with to achieve their own enlightenment and enjoy their own empowerment. And then there's a whole subset of other events to make all of this happen. Website, this podcast, products, books, ... I tether this with one of the most important theses in vocal awareness, the concept of surrender, serve, and soar. Surrender is a Latin word, a French word initially, which means to yield or to give back. It's about being in service to our vision, to our voice, to our calling. And we serve that, and we soar, S-O-A-R. The more we live in the sixth ritual, tuning in, making voice visual, we're better able to tap into the seventh ritual. Do you have a piece of paper and a pencil? Write the seventh ritual, please, which is be myself.
Yes.
Now, I presume you wrote two words, be myself. Write it as it's actually intended. It's three words. And the third word begins with a capital S. Be myself. Does that appear any different other than just three words?
It's sounding a bit more promising.
It's also more empowering. It's also more empowering.
Yeah.
It's about claiming. You're a very earnest man. It's quite clear to me. Very genuine. Very quote-unquote authentic. But the key to developing what you're describing here is the sixth ritual. Learning how to truly listen. To be within yourself. To work on this conscious loving breath. Space has value, you've heard me say. A song without a rest is not the same piece of music. I'd love to breathe and slow things down so your thoughtfulness lands more effectively, and your sense of your quality of man you are, the integrity of who you are. You have more time to ground within it and enjoy the company you keep within.
Thank you, Arthur, for your presence and generously sharing your experiences and your truth, your wisdom. And I look forward to have you again on my podcast.
It'd be my privilege. God
Thank you.
bless.